Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Hi. Hello, London. It's great to be here, really, really special for me. So I'm a Brit who now lives in the States and has since 2012. So whenever I get to come back and do something here and see my family, and several of them are in this room, which is very rare. So yeah, it's really special to be here with all of you. So thank you for choosing to come here and not Glastonbury this weekend, even though it is a great lineup at Glastonbury. So, you know, I'm curious how many of you are here who either don't know me, you either chose this event because of the title of the workshop, or you've been dragged here by somebody, you're going to owe them one. Just a show of hands, just for me to get a sense? Okay, well, they owe you good, and it finishes at 4. And I don't mind if you nod off, we'll wake you up at the end, that's fine. And the reason that I wanted to, because when we spoke, Venetia and I, about doing an event, the reason I thought I would like to hold a day that's really about intuition is because in a way that has been kind of an underscore of my spiritual life and also the work that I do. And 15 years ago this month, I did my first ever private reading, and I was absolutely terrified. And if I could flash forward to today, I wouldn't have been equipped. I would have been horrified to see all of you here and me on the stage because I wouldn't have known what to say. But what I've learned is that intuition is such an integral part of our lives. So I thought, okay, let's devote a day to it and see what happens. And I'm a huge believer in the title does half of the work for you anyway. So I have so many books that I bought because I thought, well, if I have this in my house, I don't have to read it, but because I bought it. So I'd just like to say you've already done the workshop because you signed up to be here. So today we can just kind of have some fun. And I'll just give you a quick sense of what we're going to do today. I'm going to present a few different things around intuition. I'm going to do some Q&A in the morning and in the afternoon. Stephen Washington, the lovely man I married last year, is going to be here to lead you through some mindfulness Qigong techniques, which really are the base of any intuitive magic that we hold. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to channel the Z's, who are the guides that I met. It was 20 years ago now. So I'll share a little bit about my story as we go through the morning. But first of all, how are you doing in crazy 2019? Just when you thought 2016 couldn't get any worse, it carried on. So I'm guessing that many of you, like myself, are veterans when it comes to energy work, spirituality. So and many of you probably more veteran than I am. I came to it 26 years ago. I was 17 and I'm 43 now. And that was really when I started to head into looking into the metaphysical side of life, the side of life that for me had been edited out. It's not that the rest of life isn't needed, and as you'll see as we go through today, we need both. We need to be grounded, and we need to have our senses. And between the two, magic and creation occurs. But I really went that way, and then as I started to channel the Z's, which came later, one of the things that I remember them saying many years ago that I wrongly interpreted, which is quite common when you get intuitive messages, they said to me, it was about 2006, they said, after 2012, you're going to see people are going to be so emotional. And I was like, oh, that's lovely. Wow, you're going to be like hugging. Oh, I love you. Yeah, I love you too. That's how I thought, that's nice. This 2012 thing is real. Wow, the spaceships are going to land and the planet's going to transform and whatever belief was kind of going round. And actually, of course, they were right, but my slightly Pollyanna interpretation of it wasn't necessarily correct. And so this is the interesting thing about intuition and messages. You know, I'm a firm believer that we're really experimenting with it all of the time and that nobody else can teach us. rules or methods that will work for us. People can invite us to rules and methods that may work for us, but it's really up to us. So, without further ado, by the way, I bought this on intuition the other day. We were in, I was with my family in Whitstable, and I was in an antique shop, and I was like, oh, perfect, a tarot deck, that's quite nice. That seems like it needs to be here. And this is a phrenology head. I know nothing about phrenology, but I just felt like he needed to sit here, and I thought, well, this is cool because he's got all these little parts of his brain that mean something. So anyway, I don't really know who he is or where he's been, but I've cleared him, don't worry, I've cleared him. By the way, if you're a sensitive or an empath, and you were a little on the fence about coming and being in a room of 300 people, thank you, I salute you. The exit doors are there, and there, and there. There are lighting all the way through the aisle. If you get a little hot, if it's too much, then I know that, sensitives need to find the exit door. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to go through a few different things. Please stay hydrated. I actually wrote to Venetia 2 days ago because I had a horrible intuition about the air conditioning, I now realize. I was like, this venue is air conditioned, isn't it? And she went, oh yeah. And so apparently it was working great yesterday. So hopefully it's going to remedy in the next minute. But please keep an eye on how much water you take in today. So Jacob, if we could have the slides, please. Okay. We're doing intuitive power today. It's kind of our headline because you are magic. And trust me, we don't all feel magic all the time. That's just a given. I've met many people who sometimes claim that they're always living magically, and then you see them have an anger attack at the person who's serving them dinner, and you're like, yeah, I don't know about this picture. So, but for me, magic is always available, and it's important to remember, and it is something that we have to remember. I didn't grow up learning to be intuitive, and I didn't grow up knowing that there were universal energies, connections, and synchronicities that I could tap into. But like many of you here, there are practices that we can adopt. So you are magic, and we're going to have a little look at that today. So this is one of the messages that came through the Z's in the last few years. So the Z's who I channel, who you'll meet later, they have many words, and occasionally certain sentences pop out. This was a few years ago, and this is very true to me, even as I look at the world in all of its crazy. In the crazy side, we might not see the intuitive, but we definitely see the felt. People are feeling more than they perhaps were 5, 6, 7 years ago. And sure, there are catalysts for that, but this is something that many of you will connect with because most of you here are either already a little intuitive, very intuitive, or you're curious enough to reclaim that part of yourself that you came here today. So this is really what's going on the planet right now, and you will find that if you use the sorry, I was told I have a laser here. I just need to test this. Oh, look at that. Thank you, Jacob. That's very fun. Shame our cats aren't here. Okay, so if you can keep this one alive while this one is going, things are so much better. We've all been in this side of things when things aren't very good, and it's no fun, and it's intense, and sometimes it's a clearing. But what I'm seeing a lot with people who are really struggling and fighting is they're very much in clearing. They're very much resisting, angry, and it's okay. We're all going to go through it, but this is why our intuition and what we can create through our intuition is so important. This is just a belief of mine that you may or may not agree with. You're at alternatives, so unless you are dragged by your friend and they owe you a great rock concert next week, this really is an underpinning for all of us, and this is how intuition works. Intuition is just the communication thread in spirit. Who here has seen Avatar? It's very interesting to me that that's like the #1 movie in the world. 10 years old, and it's the top box office, and Avatar really explains it. Basically, the tribe in Avatar, they know that everything is connected, so intuition to them is like breathing. They haven't lost that connection. So this is one of my favorite quotes about intuition because it's how I have learned to live. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Both are needed. The rational mind isn't bad. I'm a very rational person as well as being an intuitive. We need both. And so what he's really inviting us all to do is to let go of some of the logic, let go of some of the rationale so that we can let in the intuitive and the felt senses. So this is a question I just want you to ask yourself right now, and you don't have to share this with anybody, but what does your soul need from you today? Because we all have a soul. We're in this human body, we're in this human identity, but we all have a soul. It's why children come in uniquely wired. We're influenced by our family, and who our family are is going to have an effect on who we are, but we all come in with very distinct personalities. I saw a great documentary recently about the boys who were triplets, and I forget the name of it now. It came out a year or so ago, and they were all separated at birth. And they brought them back together, and society wanted to make this big thing. They were on TV shows because they were all separated, and they were brought back together, and oh, look, they're all so alike. They weren't. They had some similarities. They definitely had certain things that they were very alike, but they were very different. And this is really important for us to remember. So what does your soul need from you today? So have a moment just to sit. What does my soul need from me today apart from air conditioning right now? And just see if anything comes to mind. I got more fun for myself. I'm working on it. It's fun being here with you. You might have got something bigger, powerful, and this is the kind of thing we can do all of the time. It takes 1 minute. We silence our mind, we focus, and we see what comes through. That's connecting with our soul. More on that later. So, I'm going to share with you my story of how all this kind of came to be for me, because there will be relevance for you guys, and you'll see how our story is woven through everybody's story. So, this is how I was born. My mother's exhausted. No. No, I really wasn't born. This was a few weeks ago in Denver. I just thought, I was going through all my slides yesterday, and I thought, oh, that would be funny. No, I was born, like everybody, and I was born in Birmingham to a very loving, supportive family, and something inside me that I just knew from an early age felt very different. And I feel like we all feel that. I don't think there's anyone on the planet who doesn't think they're different, either from their family or where they live. But there was something different that was going on that I couldn't put my finger on. And the one place that I felt really balanced, really happy was creativity. Creativity was my friend. So, creativity is inventing, experimenting, growing, taking risks, breaking rules, making mistakes, and having fun. Oh, I needed more of that. Perfect. Creativity. And creativity to me is a very intuitive energy. It's a spiritual energy. But because I was a sensitive kid and an intuitive kid, and I also began to realize, oh, I don't think I'm heterosexual, and everything in the world around me is telling me that's going to be a big problem, there were several reasons that I started to kind of cave in on myself. So I found my other best friend. So creativity was my first best friend, and my second best friend became sugar, which is really fun for about 12 minutes. And then it's not great for about 30 minutes, and then it's really bad after that. So I was a sugar binge eater. That was how I dealt with my feelings as a kid. And if things got overwhelming for me, if things got too much, I could go to sugar. And I could eat, a lot of chocolate in a small space of time, or a lot of sugar. And that's not really a problem when you're younger, but the more empowered you get, when you get pocket money, when you can go off by yourself and secretly eat sugar, your family don't quite know what's going on. So I was taken to Weight Watchers age 10. I lost about a stone, and then I put it all back on again, and I was in and out of diet clinics all my teens. So for me, emotions were a terrifying place. I loved the good emotions, but the emotions that brought me down, I would get really scared, and I would feel really, really trapped. So this sensitive, intuitive part of me was stifled. Creativity was the solution, sugar was the problem. But like everybody, we all have our scale. We all have the thing that we lean on that's destructive and the thing that we lean on that's helping us grow and helping us become someone else in the world. So for me, theater became my kind of escape early on. And this is a quote that I saw in San Francisco a few years ago in a theater, the San Francisco Playhouse, and it made so much sense to me. Theater is like a gym for empathy. It's where we can go to build up the muscles of compassion, to practice listening and understanding and engaging with people that are not just like ourselves. We practice sitting down, paying attention, and learning from other people's actions. We practice caring. Now, for me, theater was a place that I could take my empathic, sensitive self, shove myself into a story, because I had an identity crisis, so it was much easier to become someone else. But now I look back on my time in theater as a kid, it was a time to connect with groups of people, whether it was the people that I was working with backstage, or feeling the energy of a room full of people. I didn't know that at the time, but it now starts to make sense. And the reason I'm sharing these details of my story with you is you will start to see, if you look at your life, there are stepping stones to where you are now that all start to make sense, especially if your intuition is allowed to lead the way. Okay, so this was probably a pivotal moment for me. I went to a college that was much more suited to me. It was a mixed gender college. I went to an all-boys school, not a good combination for a kid who's very strong in the feminine and the intuitive. So when I got to college, my friend introduced me to certain metaphysical things. And then I went to university and I went to a tarot reader regularly. And tarot was very interesting to me because, of course, tarot's full of skepticism for a lot of people. Oh, tarot reader, oh, Mystic Meg, you know. Anybody remember Mystic Meg in the newspaper? Yeah. She probably wouldn't look like that now. I don't know. I haven't seen her. But, at the time, tarot, it's like, oh, yeah, you've got to have a funny tea towel on your head and, all that stuff. But for me, something felt really true when I sat in that tarot reading. My body crackled. And whether or not the reader was a really good reader or not, aligned with me or not, something felt alive about the fact that we were tapping into messages. So tarot was one of the first things that opened me to intuition as a receiver. Then came dowsing, and this was where my rational mind kicked in. So my good friend Nina, who I love, she's like a soul sister, and I've never had any reason to not trust Nina. She comes into the apartment I'm in one day, and she says, oh, I've been crystal dowsing. And I'm like, oh, crystal, what's that? She's like, oh, well, I'll show you. You get the crystal out and you hold it. And I'm kind of probably half interested. And she holds it, and she goes, so you hold it out like this. She said, and basically you can ask it a question, and it will give you the answer. And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, I'll show you. So you hold it like this, and you ask a question, and if it's a yes answer, the crystal will spin clockwise. Are we in Conway Hall? Okay. Is the air conditioning working? No. Let me go back. I trust Nina with my life. I love tarot. I'm like, she is moving that crystal. She is moving that crystal. My rational mind couldn't get my head around it until she gave it to me. And then I did it, and I was like, well, hang on, I'm not faking this, I'm not moving my hand. So I started to do the dowsing with the yes-no answer. So a yes is clockwise, and a no is anti-clockwise. But what began to happen then was I would get more information. Are we in Conway Hall? Yes. You're here for an event. Is the air conditioning working? No, but it will be soon. Little things like that, and it didn't really make sense at the time, but something was beginning to bleed in for me. So dowsing was the next key, and if you haven't tried dowsing, that's a fun thing to do. Try it out on your, more open friends. Music and songwriting was the next thing that happened to me, and this was a year before I heard the voice of my guides. I suddenly started writing music, and I loved music. Like, honestly, that had saved me emotionally in my teenage years, whether it was performing in musicals and things, or more importantly, the singer-songwriters like Tori Amos, who had saved my life because they were singing about pain, or Radiohead. And you know, if I listened to Tom York, I always felt a bit less depressed than he sounded, so that was good. Love Tom York. But it had, because it had taken, you know, the emotion in our body. Music doesn't need explanation. We feel music. We are intuitive in our response to music. Kids start dancing to music before they've learned to be a bit afraid of how they might look when they're dancing. So it just goes straight through our feeling body. Music is a very felt experience. So this happened for me, and then this happened for me. And this was really the kind of culmination of it all. And a good friend of mine, Wendy Pye, who is here today, took me to see a channeler, and my rational mind kicked in again. So a really lovely guy who channeled an entity called Hazim. And bear in mind, at this point, I've read Out on the Limb, I've read the Celestine Prophecy, I've done all the things you're supposed to do to kind of be primed for this. But we went to meet this man and his wife, and he was lovely, like the nicest man. He had a regular job, he had a business, but he would channel on the side for people who were interested and privately. And of course, back then, you know, we didn't really have the internet at all in the same way we have it now. So it was all very like, oh, we're going to this man's house in the country, and what's it going to be like? We couldn't like check out his website first or anything like that. So we go in, and he's lovely, and they also run like a psychology course, and so it's, oh, that's interesting. And then we sit down, and he says, okay, you're going to meet Hazim now, and I'm like, okay. So I sit down, and he closes his eyes, and he starts to talk to me, and I get to ask questions, and his voice slightly changes, and the room is dark, and the reading's quite good, but I leave, and we're driving home, and I say to Wendy, well, it was good, but why did he have to like close his eyes and have like a weird voice? Why couldn't he just have told us that? Because some part of my mind thought, well, surely that's an act. Surely he's putting that on. Why? He's clearly wise and intuitive, and look who's got egg on his face all these years later. All these years later. So thank you, Hazim. And it's interesting because I've heard stories like of other channelers. I remember Esther Hicks talked about she met a channeler, Theo, and then I often feel that for those of us who are possibly primed to go that way, it just takes meeting or being in the energy of a few of the right people, and it kind of activates that part of you. Now, when it happened to me, I was in one of the most spiritual places on earth, so I got lucky. And, you know, I don't want to keep this from you guys. I feel like we should share powerful places. So just for you, and keep this to yourselves, I'm about to show you a very rarely seen spiritual map to this place. You ready? Wow. It's flashing. Very spiritual place. You could go on a silent meditation retreat and not talk to people, or you could go on the tube. I don't know where I was exactly, but I was somewhere in the middle bit, and I was going to my job in fundraising, and I, you know, was still dealing with more self-loathing and self-judgment than was good for me. I was working on it. I was going to workshops to try and shift myself, to try and, you know, kind of get out of that self-kicking thing that would happen for me all the time. But I wasn't there yet. So this really helped, because I'm sat there on the tube and I am having a conversation about something that had happened the night before. And I'm like, oh, God, can't believe he was like that. And I'm like, what an awful person. He's clearly got issues. And from the left, very clearly, and still to this day, this is where I hear them when I'm talking to them, I heard a voice say, that's an interesting thought, but you're wrong. This is your issue, and here is why. And I don't remember feeling that hearing the voice was weird, because I was so entranced by what I heard next and the fact that my whole body changed. It wasn't just that they explained why I was the one that was wrong. It was what it did to my body. Because my mind calmed down, sure, but only because my body, that was kind of like this, my body just kind of went, oh. And everything kind of changed. So then, after that lovely euphoric moment, you're like, oh, I'm schizophrenic, oh my God. This could explain so much. No wonder I could do character acting on stage. Maybe most of me doesn't like sugar. Maybe it's just one part of me that whenever I let him out, went crazy. Because he was like, I haven't had sugar. But sadly not, because I did some research. I was like, I'll just check. One of the questions I am asked the most, if I do interviews and people want to talk, like podcasts and things, and people want to talk about channeling as a phenomena, one of the questions I'm asked the most is, do you ever feel weird or scared of the fact that you can do this? And I said, no. The thing I was most afraid of was other people's reaction. It felt like home. And it does feel like home. And I always say, for me, it's not a big deal. I once lived with, I was in a shared house, and one of the guys, who was a very funny guy anyway, I mean, he was a character, but he would ask me questions all the time, because I'd be going off to do readings, and he'd be like, so like, when you channel and you're like doing your readings for people, are there like things like flying around the room? And I'd be like, can I have whatever you're smoking? And no, it was good for me too, because I didn't know what people, you go, oh, wow, that's interesting that we get kind of jumbled up with sorcery. And no, it's not quite as exciting as Harry Potter. It's a lot more kind of normal and simple. And I often think that the spiritual and the powerful moments, they are quiet and simple and not massive, but they have a massive effect. If we listen to the quiet voice inside, it can have a massive effect out here. So, yes, that fateful day on the tube led to many months of me going home and writing questions and then writing answers. And I would do this about my personal life, I would do this about the world at large, and I did this for months. And I had a core group of friends, a few people in my midst who were also spiritual seekers, and so I would start to do it a little bit for them. And I was kind of testing, learning how to do this for other people. And this was the turning point, this sentence. I wasn't raised religious, so for me, the notion of God is not something that's wired into me. I definitely believe in a higher power, and I believe that one person's God is another person's source energy. One person's Jesus is another person's Holy Spirit. I believe, for me, it's all connected. But I didn't identify with God. But I went to these brilliant workshops, many of them in my early 20s. I don't know if any of you know them, Psychology of Vision. Okay, so I don't know how around they are now, but I went to many of them. It was how I was getting over myself, basically, kind of getting over my stuff. And it was a guy called Chuck Spezzano, and he said to us all one day, there were about this many people in a room in London, maybe a few more, and he said to us, if you were able to surrender your plans, if you'd maybe got it wrong about what you were here to do, would you be willing to let go of your plan and say, God, use me, I surrender? Now, just to be clear, I had gone to that workshop with some plans, okay? I was going to be a singer-songwriter because I was going to go into the very career that had helped me the most. I was going to use my voice, use what I was creating, go around the world, record things to put back out into what I call the wheel. I believe that the wheel of creativity is something that we receive from and give to. So none of us have one favorite. Well, no, that's not true. We have favorites, but none of us have one novelist that has touched our lives, one singer-songwriter, one band. We have many. We need many flavors. We need many different voices, just like we need many friends, many family members. We're tribal internally. We have many aspects, and so they get fed by all the people that we meet in the outside world. So I wanted to give back to that wheel of creativity that had saved me. So I was like, oh, hang on a second, Chuck. hang on a second. I remember I came to this workshop to get my singer-songwriter career going, among other things. But this is what happened next. He said, if you can agree with this idea, God, use me, I surrender, come up to the front. Come up to the front here. And this is what happened. Of the 300 people in the room, about 100 people in the room went, ah! And they were all hugging, and they looked so happy, and I was like, what the fuck? Which coffee did they drink at the refreshment stand this morning? But they looked good. Then there were about 100 people who had heard front of the room, and they were like, well, no, actually, Chuck, no, I know exactly what I've got my plan figured out, and how do I know that God's going to interpret it? No, no. And then there were those of us somewhere in the middle. I was really a little torn, because I totally got where these guys were coming from, but these guys at the front looked really happy. They looked really lit up. They looked really... I wanted to feel like them. I didn't, but I wanted to. And I was also pushing myself through my fears at that time consciously. I realized how scared I was of so many things. So I knew that if I got scared and I wasn't terrified, terror was the line, but fear was something I should try and walk into, at least as far as I could. I thought, okay, I'll do it. It took me 6 years to work out that this day was about 3 months before I did my first private reading. Bear in mind, my first private reading was my side job that wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't think anyone would come. I didn't realize I would do 60 readings in the first 60 days. I didn't realize that 15 years later it would have developed into this world of teaching and offerings that it has, that I've been fortunate enough to have had the support around and been able to take my time and step through it. But that was the day that changed everything for me. And oh, I'm missing a key point. The reason I had a plan was because I wanted to use my voice. I wanted to create things. I wanted to go around the world and give back to an area that had helped me. And I had put self-development and healing in the, oh, that's my hobby. That's my passion. That's what I go to work for so I can pay for this workshop, or that's what I'm getting the loan on First Direct for so that I can go to this workshop. And I did that. I got out loans so I could go to like healing workshops. And the funniest thing for me was when I went to my first Psychology of Vision workshop, I had that euphoria that you often get when you're in the right place and you're somewhere. And I remember coming away going, that's really interesting. So I was standing in a room full of people who were often crying, and it was one of the happiest days of my life. And now I see it. I'm like, oh, it was all right in front of me. But it was good that I didn't quite understand. I just kept following my intuition one step at a time. Our intuition leads us to a greater journey, but we don't have to know that greater journey now. We just have to trust, listen, lean in. Courage needs fear. So, my friend Anaya Sophia had a yoga newsletter, and she said, I've got 300 people on this newsletter. You should do this as a job. I was really helped by what you just said to me at coffee. That really helped me and my partner. You should do this as a job. And I was like, oh, no, I couldn't do it for people I don't know. How would I do that? Well, how would you do it? And she, kind of made me think. I thought, well, maybe if they send me 3 questions by email, I could write them something and send it back. Again, I'm afraid, but I don't know. I could try it. What's the worst that could happen? I'll do it for a donation. If they want to give me something, fine, but then there's no pressure. I'm not like saying I'm somebody who can do this, and I'm not charging them necessarily, so it's okay. Okay, I didn't think anyone would come. So I send her this paragraph on a Tuesday, and I go, oh, typical me at that point. Oh, Anaya, here's a paragraph. Maybe it's wrong. What do you think of it? Feel free to change. What do you think? Wednesday, nothing. Thursday, oh, you know what? She was probably just being nice. She's British too. She was probably just being nice and polite. She's probably forgotten about it. Monday, I'm at my job, which was admin, one of the jobs I was doing to support myself at the time, and I get a phone call from a man called Colin. And I have that schizophrenic moment again, courage, and fear. I'm lucky I have quite a strong sense of responsibility around my work. I always have had, like even if I was a waiter somewhere, I don't know, there's just a thing in me that believes that if you're offering someone a service, you should do your best around that service. If you're offering to be something or do something, do your best. So when Colin said, "Is this Lee? Yeah, I saw your information on Anaya's newsletter." She sent it, she didn't tell me anything. And do I just tell you my 3 questions? And I was like, oh my fucking God. Oh my fucking God. That was one side of me. And the other side of me, because I'm a professional, went, yes, Colin, that's what you do. You send me the 3 questions, and then I will do them for you. Thank you, Colin, wherever you are, June 14th, 2004. I always remember the date. And at the beginning, I was terrified. I would get these readings come in, and I would have to do them as quickly as possible. I'd see these people's questions. They would make me cry. I couldn't believe that people were like sharing this intimate thing with me. I didn't tell my family I was doing it for a couple of years because, you know, even though they've always been loving and supportive of me, this is a bit weird. Oh yeah, I'm doing like readings from a guide that I hear and I write it down. And, you know, I just didn't want to get into that. I'd already had to come out as gay. I was like, Jesus, give me a break. Another thing? So I was like, no, I'm just not even going to go there. But it got to the point where, why is Lee always like running off with his laptop and like having to go for like, because it got to the point where I was getting busy. So courage needs fear. I once had someone say to me, oh, you're really fearless because you're a public channeler. And oh, God, no. I said, no, I've had fear all along the way. Courage is only courage when fear is present. This is another thing about our intuition. Our intuition doesn't care about our fear, but our intuition is often asking us to overcome our fear. We'll have a vision, we'll have a thought, we'll have an intuition. It's really pure. It's like, you know what? Go to Greece for a week with your friend because you really need the rest and you've got the money. Go to Greece and you're like, oh, that feels really good. And then you come back to, oh, well, Mom might miss me if I go, and, oh, well, if I spend that money, you know, we go into the rational mind, and we screw it all up. Or we go into the rational mind, and we go, okay, this is an opportunity to trust. Going to Greece isn't completely reckless. It's not going to kill my life. It's not going to make me bankrupt. This is the dance between intuition and fear. So courage needs fear. This was a leaflet this is the actual leaflet that I created with the help of a friend, which I think was Wendy. Yes. And this was it. And, you know, I was shitting myself. Like, the gift of this, sorry for anybody I'll try and keep my swearing down, because sometimes those words are the only words that convey it. But I was bricking it, as you would say in England. That wouldn't make sense to the Americans, so I can say that here. But this is really what I did. I set up this email address, Guidance 2012, because remember, 2012 was the last year we were all going to be alive, right? So it's like, okay, so Guidance 2012 is what I'll do. And this was the actual leaflet. And again, at the bottom, there is no set charge. I think by the time I'd done about 100, 200 people, you know, it took me 90 minutes. So I was earning £10 an hour, so I started to have a minimum of £10. Just, you know, it's like, oh, he's crying. But I was busy, very busy. And that's kind of how it all began. But it was humble beginnings. This was really, I had a little website, but it was one of those donkey websites, you know, that nothing really happened on. You know, you'd go there and there was a clunky homepage and you didn't do anything with it like you do now. So this was leaflets that were put in and around yoga centers. And then this is the end result today, because this book came out in March. And here's the hilarious thing about this book. This book, I didn't want to do. I was doing a completely different book. We spoke to a few literary agents, and one literary agent said to me, oh, don't do that book. He said, I'd like to represent you if you do that book. That book's going to be a hit. He said, I don't think this book, the channeled stuff, is going to be it. And I was like, we've decided. I was trying to do this other book and it wasn't working. Just wasn't. Everything was going wrong around it. And then I went on this tour, and I had so many people. We'd self-published some channeled material before with the same title, but I've now withdrawn those books. This is a whole other thing. It's a bigger compendium. It's all been re-edited, reapproached. And people would say to me, I've got the books by my bedside, and I open it to a page at night, and it makes me feel better. And I listened. That wasn't my intuition. That was just paying attention to what people all around the world were telling me in 2016. So I was like, oh. And as soon as I followed that and said, let's put this book out there, it's been fantastic. But the reason I'm putting this on the screen now is it hit me that, wow, this is 2006, the first channeled chapter in that book was created. It was in France, it was live. So the reason I'm sharing all of this with you is partly because I know for some of you, you may not know my story, and some of you, it might just be interesting context for the day. But the seeds of what we're doing today will show up 5, 10, 15 years from now. And they won't all necessarily look like our career or our work in the world. But the amount that we let ourselves be called forward, it only needs to be small. All you need to do today is agree to just slightly step beyond your comfort zone. It doesn't have to be huge, but if you keep committing to that, and we're going to contact your inner voice later, you will be surprised at the results and the journey that it will give you. Okay. Some truths about intuition. Okay. I like this quote from Kim Basinger. I found a few. We probably call her Basinger, but this is the problem when you live in America. You start saying the word that you hear everyone else say. So Kim Basinger, she says, I feel there are two people inside me and my intuition. If I go against her, she'll screw me every time. And if I follow her, we get along quite nicely. Now, this is me. This won't be everyone in this room, because we're all a little different, right? Nobody is the same. Nobody's wired the same way. But I've tried to go against my intuition many times, and it has cost me badly. But equally, if I have tried to push my intuition into reality too fast without enough rational mind or logical thinking, it doesn't ground. The thing about intuition is it will show you a long range ahead and a short range now. So it's important to know, where am I today? What am I doing today? So this is what I always talk to people about. Visions and instincts are starting points. So who here has ever had a friend or been that person who goes to a workshop or has a card reading or does your own thing, and you're like, I am supposed to start a healing center in Brazil? Have you ever run a healing center? No! But I probably have in a past life. I'm sure I must have. How hard can it be? Well, actually, it can be quite hard. Shh! I am supposed to start a healing center in Brazil, and it's going to be amazing, and Oprah's going to come. Oh, my God! We all have possible timelines. What I mean by this is we all have possible fates. And sometimes we'll walk into them, and sometimes we'll get shown them so that we can choose something else. And sometimes we try and force what we would like fate to be because we ain't liking what's going on right now. I want to go to Brazil! So I've experienced this many times with people, and it's kind of heartbreaking too, because you'll be with someone and you'll go, well, how's the healing center in Brazil going? Oh, it's been 3 years and we've been blocked by everybody and I'm almost bankrupt and I'm about to leave my husband, we're not getting it. And I'm like, okay, well, have you thought about letting it go? No, the vision told me. The vision told me. Okay, when did the vision tell you? 2013! Okay, and it's 2019 now. I know that! Visions are not in charge. Instincts are not in charge. I've pissed people off sometimes when I've said that, and they go, oh, how can you say that? You're a channeler. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm in charge of me. I'm choosing to be a channeler. I'm not some puppet. And if I didn't want to do this anymore, I would stop. I would keep my private relationship with them if I wanted to. But if I didn't want to do this anymore, if it wasn't serving me and my soul development at some level, I would stop. thought about it many times. So instincts and visions are starting points. So we might have this vision and it might change. That's why we have to keep checking in. If your last reading about the plan that you're on right now was 2013, do another reading. And keep doing another reading, because you probably haven't been frozen in cryo since 2013. You've probably changed as a person. The world has changed. Things are always moving and changing. Intuition is like a GPS. It will reroute you along the journey. Keep listening to it and adjusting as you go. Now, it's funny because as I read this card out to you, I can think of a few people in my life who, when the GPS wants to reroute us, no, it said we were going this way, so I'm just going to ignore her. Turn her off. Turn it off. I don't want to hear her voice. But most of us will go with the reroute. Most of us will go, oh, okay, well, I missed that turn. Okay, well, now I'm going somewhere else, and it's going to take me a bit more time, and there's a reason. Intuition is like this. So, healing center in Brazil, contract after contract is blocked. Because you've gone to these meetings with people about healing centers, you might meet someone who has got theirs set up and they go, hey, Jill, now you're divorcing your husband and all your friends hate you and don't speak to you anymore. I've got a healing center in Costa Rica. Do you want to come and work there for a year? Where? Is that near Brazil? Yeah, okay, I'll come, but I can't stay because I'm going to do my healing center in Brazil. Okay, Jill, but just come for a year. Okay. Goes to Costa Rica, falls in love with someone else, realizes, thank God I didn't run a healing center because this is hard work. I like just doing the massages and the readings and then going and gardening because that's my bliss. The reason I was so fixated on the healing center when the vision came was I was so sick of my life. I was so desperate to get out of my life that I took all those emotions, all those thoughts, all those desires, and I saddled that poor vision with all of it. Oh, healing center in Brazil. Okay, you can have unhappy with the husband. Boom. Never made as much money as I wanted. Boom. Wanted to be a successful healer. Boom. I really want to meet Oprah. Oh, boom. Oh, that poor healing center. That healing center's going to need a cleanse. Don't go there. So keep listening to it and adjusting as you go. And this is why, there are certain things we do every day in life. We eat every day, we drink every day, we speak to the same people on most days. We check in with our intuition too. It's always moving, it's always changing, and new opportunities are always coming in. So intuition isn't fixed, it's active. So we have to be active with it. And one of the most heartbreaking things for me going into the channeling field and into the spiritual field as someone at the front rather than someone here, because I spent so much time in so many workshops here, it kind of broke my heart how many people give their power away to spirit. It really did, and it happened over and over again, and it took me several years, and I see some nodding heads, I'm sure many of you who do this work, and I started to think, why do we do that? Because I did it too, at the beginning, and I think it's because it has been so edited out of our society, unless you're a tribe, or unless you're in a culture. There are certain cultures around the world that still have a certain faith and spiritual sense of things that we don't know. So when somebody tells us they're a shaman, we just go, oh, okay, well, this is what a shaman's like. And when the shaman, because we go to that shamanic workshop in London that lovely Venetia and Alternatives are hosting, when the shaman comes out and goes, hello, people, I am your shaman. I am going to teach you some stuff. First, I want you all on your knees. Oh, okay, I was a shaman. Oh, okay. 6 hours later, we leave that place, battered, bruised, traumatized, and we don't quite know what just happened to us. But we go away and we think, oh, that shaman, oh, well, he's a powerful shaman because the bio said. We disconnect our own intuition. We go, oh, well, it says he's a shaman. Rational mind says shaman. Venetia wouldn't bring a crazy person. I'm not feeling good, and I've been sick for a week, and I've needed to recover, and I'm noticing that I get PTSD every time a new Alternatives email drops in the inbox. But it can't be the shaman because he's a shaman. Oh, yes, it can. Of course it can. It absolutely can. So we give our power away because we just haven't had enough normalizing of this stuff, and we haven't had enough people telling us, you know, it's all about what you feel, and it's all about what you do with your power, your intuition, your spirituality. It's personal. So everybody in this room is intuitive enough to feel the difference in what I just showed you. So if I had walked out here like that shaman, you guys would have probably felt very different for the last hour than how you have now. Sure, there's some slides. Sure, I'm using words. But actually, what you're mostly tapping into is the energy that we are all in together. The energy that I'm emitting here, the energy I'm receiving from you. We're in an energy soup right now. And it's twofold. It's a two-way thing. Even though it looks like I've got the talking stick right now, some of you will have the talking stick as we go through the day. I haven't really. I'm just talking to what's here energetically. There's no script for me. I don't normally even use slides, but I decided we'd have a few. So this conversation is alive, and we're all intuitively feeling it, even though you might go away with your rational mind going, oh, I'm glad I wrote down that thing on that slide. I'm going to remember that. My rational mind's going to come back to that. But energy does speak, and we're feeling it all the time, which is why I do not believe anybody isn't intuitive. I don't think everybody is going to be a psychic or a channeler, or because we're all different. You know, I'm not the world's greatest chef by any stretch of the imagination. Now, if I went to chef school for 6 months, sure, I'd probably get a lot better and figure things out. But that's not really my leaning, my gift. But everybody is feeling all the time. Intuition is part of our daily life. So how we feel about what's going on in front of us is one thing. What we then do and what we then say is how we make changes. What does my soul need from me today? So, do we have paper for everybody? Fabulous. And does everybody have it already? Great. So, you are about to channel for yourself. Yes, you are. There'll be a bunch of you in here who are like, oh yeah, I do that all the time, it's what I do. And there'll be some of you who are like, huh? Yeah. So, channeling is different for everybody. So, for example, with me, I met my guides. Wasn't looking for it, wasn't planning on it. I was kind of happy, you know, I had enough going on, but it happened. Now, not everybody is going to channel their guides and have direct communication with them. Not everybody is going to speak to Archangel Michael or President Zod from the 18th dimension. Some will. But everybody can channel their higher self. That is something I absolutely believe. And the higher self is just the part of us that goes beyond the rational mind. It's the soul. It's the voice of the soul. So, what does my soul need from me today? I want you to write at the top of your paper, what does my soul want me to know today? What does my soul want me to know today? And now, just take a couple of minutes to write whatever comes to you. What does my soul want me to know today? And don't think about it, just write. For some of you, it will come through automatically, and for some of you, you might hear or see words, and you write them down. Okay. Thank you, Jacob. If you were surprised by what you wrote, just raise your hand. Okay. Anybody here, could you keep your hand up if this was the first time you'd ever done this? Okay, great. So I'm curious at this point, before we go for a break shortly, if there are any questions. So either about this or about anything else that we've just gone through in the first hour. But the reason I wanted you to do this is a really quick reset, especially for your mind. So if your mind is really busy and you're like, it's a really good thing to go, okay, I know my mind has a lot to say. What does my soul want to do? Because there is a part above my mind, somewhere on this guy's head, let's see, somewhere on our little friend's head, who came all the way from Whitstable, that is above and has a higher and wider perspective for us. And I will just say that often when you first channel for yourself, the most common thing I've heard from disgruntled people is, oh, well, yeah, I did, but it was just like nice. It was just like, you're beautiful, you're a lovely person. And I was like, okay. And how often do you say that to yourself? And they're like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, it kind of calibrates you at first. I find that the more we channel, the more we do this kind of exercise, the more detail, the more back and forth happens. But at the beginning, we get calibrated to a slightly higher level of love and acceptance than we as humans are calibrated to and sharing with each other. Because energy speaks. And if you look at the news, or if you see the harassed parent in the supermarket, or you have a conversation with a friend who's only angry about what's going on for them and can't see beyond it, energy also affects us. So we're often in that vibration with each other and having to use practices like this one, for example. Stephen's going to share some others, to kind of bring ourselves back to spirit, back to center. So, anybody have any questions? Yes, perfect. We'll start down here. Thank you. We're going to bring a mic down to you so that everyone can hear you. Or the talking stick. I like your shirt, by the way. Is that? Oh, that's very cool.
A little souvenir from London.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Grania from Cork. Delighted to be here.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Been listening to you for a while, so it's brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
How do you know if it's the difference between spirit or your head? Is it listen to the body?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. You remember how I said earlier the feeling was different for me with the channeling? You will know you've gone beyond the mind if you notice a shift in your state. So, for example, if I'm like, oh, no, I'm going to channel from my soul, and then I just walk out and nothing's changed. And that's when creating space or creating a moment of stillness, even just this is a moment of stillness. We don't need to go on a 5-day retreat necessarily. We just need to take 5 minutes every day or a few times a day to go beyond the quagmire of it all. So, a couple things. It won't judge you. If you feel judged, shamed, or attacked, that's not the voice of your soul. That's part of your psyche and part of what's going on for you emotionally playing out. And also, if you find that you're confused by what you're getting, you might just need to go, okay, I'm confused, this isn't helping, I need something that's going to open me up a little bit more. Just sit for a minute, still, quiet, let a bit more of that mental energy burn off, and then go in again and see what happens. So again, it's all about experimentation. You know how earlier I was saying that visions and instincts are starting points? We shouldn't be too deferent to what came out on the page anytime, but especially not if it's confusing. That isn't the time to back away. It's like, oh, let's go in again and see what happens. Let's try something different. Let's jump up and down and try it again. Because it's all going to be about your personal experiment. Was there any other aspect of what you were asking that comes to mind?
No, that was
great.
That's cool.
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. Yes, anybody else? We'll do you next, but yeah, I think you found someone. Where were you headed? You look very determined. I like your intuition. Let's go there.
Thank you.
I'm very pleased to meet you.
Hello.
Going back to what you were saying about this person having this, wanting this healing center in Brazil.
Yes.
And then...
How many people here wanted a healing center at some point in their life? It's common, I'm telling you. I think everyone had the same vision, and no wonder those contracts weren't coming through. The world didn't need as many healing centers as that one vision that everyone was tapped into.
Yeah, and then they ended up in Costa Rica or whatever. You're talking about kind of going with the flow with your intuition, which I understand, but why do people get messages to go to one direction, and then what do you think about why they get messages to go in one direction and then it kind of goes off course? Is it because they've changed or the jigsaw has changed?
It's a great question. So for me, it's about getting us moving. I'll give you an example. I went into spirituality and self-development not because I was curious, but because I had a need. I needed healing. And I think a lot of people go in that way. A lot of people go in looking to try and solve parts of themselves. And I feel that what happens for a lot of people is an epiphany or a vision that feels so good is just the medicine that they need to get themselves moving. So if you're traumatized, if you're down, I once had a friend who said, oh, I don't like tarot because I think it's just making people feel better about their future rather than sort out their now. And I thought that was, I totally get what she's saying, and I don't think that's wrong, but I think sometimes to be able to move out of your now, especially if it's heavy, knowing that there are certain things up ahead that you feel are true when some intuitive says that to you or you feel it for yourself, is actually fuel. So I think a lot of the time what happens is we just need to get moving in a certain direction. And there are, well, it's like I said, if I had said to you that back in 2004, if I had been shown this today, it wouldn't have made sense to me because I was just doing readings. That was all I was doing, and it was very private, and no one knew about it, and it was side of my life. If you'd have kind of shown me, it wouldn't have made any sense. So it's good that I was given it piecemeal, and then all along the way, things kept moving and changing. So for me, it's always about, all we really care about is feeling good. Most of us, all we really care about is feeling good, feeling connected to our lives, feeling connected to people. We don't care so much about the details, but often when we're not in that place, our mind or our intuition will go, oh, this is the scenario I need to create to be happy. Okay, I'll put everything I've got towards it because I need to move. So for me, that's kind of a truth for me about your question. I feel like sometimes the vision just leads us in one way because it's the only way we'd start on that path, and then we get rerouted at other times. I think if it's happening a lot and you feel chaotic, I think that to me speaks of trust yourself on the ground a bit more. Because you might be a high intuitive, but there's a part of you that's trying to understand the sky on the ground. And I feel like we walk between those two worlds. And so the more solid we feel in our grounded life, the more we can create as much harmony as we need on the earth plane, the more we're not going to mind what the intuition says to us. But if we're lurching from intuitive promise to intuitive promise and never really cleaning up what's going on the ground, it's going to feel pretty crappy. You know what I mean? Does that answer your question? Thank you. So we had, who was next? I'm going to leave it to you to choose because you did so well. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Giovanni.
Hello.
Hi. So it's very interesting the fact that you pointed out how the intuition can be confused, corrupted, and with the Brazil. But there is also something that at the moment I'm very, very confused about it, is the karma thing.
Karma.
So the karma, that I cooked a child in this life, next life they will cook me, or something like that. So sorry, it's a bit of a... But, and then also the soul. There is also the soul that is the boss. The boss, the soul write contract and say, this life you have to learn patient, so you will born without a leg.
Yeah.
And so you will learn. So, and then in all this confusion,
yes.
Yeah, there is the intuition, the vision, the channeling. Could you spend a few words about it, please?
Yes. Well, I don't know about you, but I think life is confusing. Like, just, you know what I mean? It's a wild ride being human. It's fantastic, it's challenging, it's awful, it's tragic, it's beautiful. So to me, all these disparate parts happen for us in our life and happen wherever you place your focus on the planet. Many people in certain religions have very strong beliefs around karma. My personal experience with karma and what they have explained to me that feels true for me is that we reach a point where what they call base karmic lessons get cleared. Meaning, let's say you first 40 years of your life, 50 years of your life, you're kind of not really very awake to a spiritual life. So you're going from lesson to lesson without really much sense of what's going on or being able to stand back and go, oh, what is this telling me? What is this teaching me? But then there comes a point when you wake up when they say that you very quickly clear through some of your karma because you are now, what's the word, kind of co-driving your life with your soul. You're no longer just being dragged from thing to thing. That feels true for me, and I see certain people play out core lessons over and over again until they have the epiphany, the breakthrough, and then that seems to free them up. But I think often karma is used in a very heavy and judgmental way. And I've met lots of spiritual people who, you killed me in a past life, so you should throw a party for 50 of my friends next week that you pay for, You know what I mean? There's a lot of manipulation and game playing and power tripping that can happen in that because who knows? Like I always say, look, if I die and they go, oh, by the way, you were just in an alien warehouse and all that channeling stuff wasn't true. That was Ralph on a tannoy. And I honestly don't care. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, okay. But while I'm here, like, this is what I understand. And Ralph, shh. Sorry, I'm talking now. You get your turn. So for me, beliefs are actually quite fragile. Beliefs are things that we move through like states of energy. I mean, you speak to anybody who's gone through a few decades on the planet, they'll go, oh, I used to believe this. Beliefs hold us in a certain place until they don't, until we change, until life changes us. So the karma thing for me, I've often heard of it used in a very heavy way. That doesn't really resonate for me personally, but it might for someone else who needs to play that heavy game for a while, and that's part of why they came here. But what does resonate for me is this idea that we go through life and we have lessons, and that the lessons show up until we get them. And that's why when you get conscious, you're like, oh, wow, I constantly have failed businesses. I constantly have failed businesses, and I am not, I'm not a crazy person. There's something I need to look at here. There's something I can look at. I can figure this out. I can move this area of my life. That's when karma is no longer something that's blindly hitting us over the head. I think you have to be careful with karma because it can create victim consciousness, which is okay. So, hey, we've all felt like a victim at times. But if it becomes your identity, your life's going to become very unmagnetic. If you are in the victim mode, you don't manifest very easily. You don't create new life. You're really in death. You're really in the downward spiral of death energy. So that's where I get a little hesitant with karma. Which child did you cook? Was it this lady on the front? Because she's giving you the evil eye right now. Would you believe me if I said it was you? I'm teasing. You shouldn't. You shouldn't. I know, but you should trust yourself more. You know that. Thank you. Okay, we have time for one more question. We'll just do one more. This lady here, hi.
Thank you. Hello, Lee.
Hello.
I wanted to ask, I'm very used to my guides writing to me. I can channel angels, meditation, all of the rest of it. That's been very normal for me for many years. But I had an experience recently where a whole nother level of guides came in, and I heard this voice so clearly and had a vision like I've never experienced before. But if I tell you the context of it, that wasn't ordinary either. I was sat at the wellhead in Chalice Well Garden in Glastonbury, which is my closest thing to my spiritual home.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's my spiritual home and saviour in this lifetime. And they recently had a Buddhist festival, so there were some Tibetan monks that were there as well. And the Dalai Lama's representative in Spain happened to be there. When I heard these guides, and I was sat at the wellhead, directly at it, on the floor, and I slightly opened my eye at the end of the message, and there was the Tibetan monk from Barcelona. I knew what I'd heard at the time, but I can't remember anymore. But I know I want the access that I had at that moment. But obviously, being at Chalice Wellhead with a Tibetan monk supporting that energy as well is not an everyday situation. How do we develop our practice to move up through the levels, if you like, of what's accessible to us?
Great question. Number one, I think it's just happening right now, right? I don't know how many people are experiencing this, but so many people I know, people in my field who've done this for many years, it's like, whoa, there's a whole other level going on now. And if you think about it, as consciousness rises on the planet, because it's why things look so awful on the other end of the scale as well. Consciousness is rising, and so is the opposite of consciousness in response. And that's just going to happen. That's going to play out like that for the next decade or so at least. So, sorry. Hey, sue me if I'm wrong, but that's what they've been saying. And it's not that it's going to look exactly like this the whole time, but it's that if you're wishing for the dissonance to go away overnight, stop wishing for that, focus on your life. Focus on what you can do, because that's going to be painful otherwise. So what I love about your question is you're saying that I'm open to go higher, but here's what I see in you. You have this beautiful grounded energy, and you have this very long string that goes all the way up to the sky, and your mission is the heart. We're all a little different, and we all do things a little bit differently, but you're a heart emitter. You're somebody who, even though you have a very strong spiritual intellect, and I feel like you've been a scholar of spirituality many, many lifetimes, over and over again. Religion's in there too. You get bored teaching more than you get bored emitting. And so for you, ways that you can emit heart energy, because you've got really powerful in this lifetime. And that's actually a joy for you, seeing people connected, being somebody who helps people connect. That's more your interest, because it's more sensory. So there's a line to how much of that stuff you're going to want to do, because it will take you out your body. So I feel like for you, you don't need me to tell you what's in your question, because the answer's in your question. You're saying, I would like to see the upper floors a bit more. Well, then you will. You will. Just write it down on a piece of paper, stick it on your wall. Words have vibrational energy. But more than that, understand why you go up and down. You go up and down because you're meant to bridge the worlds. And for you, actually, your mission is helping people with heart energy. And you know those people who just at the right moment in your life, or they're just built that way all the time. They're like a warm hug wherever you go. And those people have to be a bit careful because they will be, I'm draining your heart energy. Because everybody wants heart energy. Most people want to feel loved and connected, and a lot of people haven't in their life. So heart energy people have to either learn to keep moving fast, literally and metaphorically, and also know their boundaries and know when they need to fill up, know when they need to go back to the well, no pun intended. So for you, what I get is that's happening, and that's a planetary-wide thing. If you've long been an intuitive or someone who can channel, it's going to be going up a few notches right now. But for you, actually, this is your real focus, and that's actually going to be where you're most useful in the coming decades. Doesn't mean it won't be backed up by spiritual messages, spiritual intellect, but this beautiful part of you is the thing that you're here to put out into the world. And to do that, you need to be able to come back down into your body. Because if we go out too high too many times. Who here has like felt like they need to be peeled off the ceiling many times? I had periods in my life where I was just high as a kite, and it wasn't good. It was, it was right at the time, but I much prefer now where I've been able to balance it all. So for you, that balance is really important. You aren't asking a question about how to connect higher because you know how to do that. You're just asking a question about, is it safe? And yes, it is. And this part of you is what you're grounding in your life right now. And the more joy you have and create for yourself, the more you'll be able to create that for others. Make sense?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to The Portal. The Portal is my monthly members community, and we have been going for almost 8 years. Some have called it a sanctuary for sensitives. It's a place where I get to offer you tools to help you thrive, survive, and expand your life. So every month, I get to bring in-depth teaching, specially curated content, and we do all of this in a private community. Over the years, my energy updates have become popular, but the thing about reading for everybody and the amount of people who tune into those now is we don't always necessarily get to specify. Every month, I do a 90-minute live broadcast, which is archived and available for replays for many months afterwards, where not only do I do an in-depth energy read for the Portal member community, I also take live questions. So we have some pre-submitted questions, but we have a lot of live on-air questions. I stopped doing personal sessions a couple of years ago, so this is a great way to get your question answered, but also through this curated questioning, we get to uplift as a community, because the thoughts, the concerns, the hopes that are on the community's mind get looked at, and the energy tune-up becomes a healing call as a result. Secondly, you will receive that month's latest MP3. Every single month, we create a brand new MP3 that is usually a channel from my guides, the Z's, with sound healing, and often with an original song at the end, which I create in collaboration with Slovenian sound healer and composer Davor Bozik. These MP3s are designed to support you with what's going on in current energies, and essentially to be an hour of audio medicine that you can listen to that month and forever in the future. Many people revisit these MP3s time and time again. We also have a classics library, 8 of my past titles that are favorites, that rotate every 5 months so that you get to go deeper with some recordings you may have otherwise missed or not been able to find in the past. Stephen Washington, my husband, delivers Qigong videos and teaching every single month that's exclusive to those of you in the portal. He creates a Qigong sequence that he bases on the themes of that month's energy update. Usually this is around 30 minutes long, and it remains in the portal as an archive for a full year after its first broadcast. So you immediately have access to 12 Qigong sequences on video from Stephen. Stephen also creates a short meditation every single month. These are around 7-8 minutes long because I wanted them to be short enough for you to use very easily, and he has created these with Davor Bozik. As a welcome bonus gift, when you join the portal, you will find Intuitive Power, the full video recording of our one-day event in London that kicked off our Intuitive Power tour. It's approximately 5 hours. It features myself and Stephen. If you've never been able to get to a live event, it's a great way to experience the live energy in the room and also learn some things about intuition, your body, and wellness along the way. And finally, my favorite thing is our Facebook community. Our Facebook community is a private group, so it allows people to have discussions, engage with each other, and support each other in the privacy of a contained group. So along with special discounts for Portal members, we managed to bring all of this to you at an incredibly affordable fee every month. So if you want to try the Portal, see if it resonates with you for a month, we would love to have you join us, try it out, and we hope you stay.
because we love serving our members and we love curating and creating the portal every single month.